On the grand scheme of things, 60,000, 61,000 Bitcoin is not bad. Considering 1 year ago, Bitcoin was at $28,000. That's what people forget. It may seem bad that we were just at 66,000 a few days ago and we come back down to 60,000. But we were just here like a month ago, just a few weeks ago. So it's not like we went backwards like 6 months or 6 years ago. No, we went backwards like 2 weeks ago, okay? So it's not that bad. And here's the kicker, okay? Every single time it seems like we start out a good month, a historically good month, bad. In 2023, we also started the same way. The first week in October 2023, when Bitcoin was below $30,000, it dropped almost 8% in the first week. It seemed like it was going to be a very bad month. It was going to break the trend. And guess what? By the end, we were up 33%. Kind of like how we started September. Remember September, we started out the month really bad and we ended up in the green. And so far, we're down about 7% in the first 3 days or 4 days. So, like I've always said, we can turn around and end up in a green. It's still very, very early. We're only 3 days in. 3 days in. In fact, it's not just October. Look at Kevin. He did the work for us. Look at the start of May, the start of July, the start of August, the start of September, and now the start of October. All these months, we started out the months horrible. We went down drastically. Look at August. Look at how we started August. That's when we fell down to 49,000. So I'm glad Kevin painted this nice picture for us, because if you look at it, almost every single month we start out in the red and then we end up higher at the end of the month, right? So that's actually kind of interesting. And especially since last year, we saw the same thing happen. So is October canceled? No, it's not canceled yet until we hit the end of the month, October 31st, and we are below where we started. It's not over yet, so do not give up. And we got a lot of great things aligning now, especially with the strike all of a sudden over and push back. That is absolutely fantastic. That's a big hurdle just pushed back all of a sudden. Now, JP Morgan says all this geopolitical tension is good. Good for not only gold, but also Bitcoin. Yesterday, Standard Chartered said geopolitical tension is not good for Bitcoin. But, you know, JP Morgan says no. This is actually really good for Bitcoin. And elections, too. JP Morgan is definitely backing one candidate over the other. And what is their reason? What is their reason? Because of debasement trade. So according to JP Morgan, a Trump win in particular, apart from being supportive of Bitcoin from a regulatory point of view, would likely reinforce the debasement trade, both via tariffs, geopolitical tensions, and via expansionary financial or fiscal policy debt debasement. If the Trump plays out in a similar way to 2016, there should be higher U.S. Treasury yields, a stronger dollar, U.S. stock market outperformance, in particular banks, and tighter spreads, JP Morgan said. The shift has not happened yet, with only a small move higher seen in these markets. So according to JP Morgan, obviously, based on what that guy said, they want one person to win in particular, and that person will make Bitcoin skyrocket. That's what he's saying. And you know that supply shock I keep talking about, the FOMO factor and everyone, you know, jumping in. Here's something else that's very important very, very, very important to recognize. This is going to be the only cycle in Bitcoin's history. No, the first. It's not going to be the only. This will be the first cycle in Bitcoin's history where the supply and exchanges are actually going down. Okay? Think about that for a second. Every single cycle we had before, prior to this one, the supply of Bitcoin on exchanges actually went upwards. Even the 2021 one. Okay? This one will be the only one so far, and the first of many, where the supply is actually going down. So, like 20 years from now or 30 years from now, when Bitcoin is at like $10 million, and, you have to tell your kids, your grandkids, or your great-grandkids, like, hey, the turning point for Bitcoin was when the supply shock really started happening, when the exchange reserves really started dropping. This is the year. 2024 is when it started. Well, 2023 it started, but 2024 is the halving year where it really started going down, right? So it's actually quite different than all previous cycles. Now, we know there are many things coming up, right? Many, many, many things coming up. The elections is coming up. That is next month in November, right? And we also have another FOMC meeting coming up in November. But when does Bitcoin usually go up? Well, it goes up, it starts in October. That's why it's called Uptober. But if you look at Bitcoin's trajectory after elections, it's to the moon, right? Like every single time it goes up to the moon. And it just so happened the last 3 times we had 3 new presidents. And this time around, we're going to get a new president too. So if you look at the last 3 times, Bitcoin went up to the moon after election. So that could be a big catalyst that's also coming up later this year.